Okay, we are live, and I have a wonderful guest, and I can say it turned into a friend
Mhm.
here today, Rosalind Rourke. Rosalind, I'm so glad that we're doing this live here together. How are you today?
I'm really, really excited to be here with you. We have these deep, unfolding conversations, and we never know where they're going to go, but they're always rich and fulfilling. And so I'm curious to see what happens today.
Me too.
Mhm.
So, but what I would like to do is just give our viewers and listeners just a brief background of who you are. Uh, you are part of the authors who are in our new book that's coming out, the book called Become Empowered: Echoes of Grace and Strength. And I share my story. You and 11 other ladies share their story of transformation, empowerment, and triumph. So, and we're going to have a very delightful conversation today, but I would like to give our listeners just a little background of who you are. So, here we go.
All right.
So again, my guest today is best-selling author Rosalind Rourke, who has worked deeply as a psychotherapist in the fields of mental health and trauma therapy. With a master's degree, she embarked on a distinguished career that included supervisory roles in Yale psychiatric facilities. That's a hard word for a German to say.
Psychiatric.
Uh, Thank you. Rosalind is one of the contributing authors, as I mentioned before. And she actually is a best selling author herself.
Mhm.
She wrote When Wisdom Arrives from Imagined Unworthiness to Freedom. And Rosalind continues to inspire and empower individuals on their path to self discovery and freedom as a oneness coach. So, that is in short who you are, what you did. Of course, you have so many accolades to your name and so much experience. And I would love to take this opportunity here to just to have a conversation and let's see where it takes us, right?
Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah.
So we briefly talked about your experiences with grief, and we also talked about the fact that when we are grieving, we are kind of taking ourselves out of almost out of society and participating in life. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I would love to because I think one of the most common reactions to the death of someone close is that you feel a person feels as though they don't belong. Everybody else's life is going to go on normally today, and now my life is forever changed. If the person is close to you, because we all live in this hypnotic idea of perpetual life, even though we know we're going to die, we expect on a very deep hypnotic level like it's not going to happen. And so it is always shocking when someone, and I would say always, probably always isn't true, but it's as close to always as you can be. I talked to someone recently and he said his mother just died. I said, was it expected? He said, no. I said, how old was she? 96.
Yeah,
It was not expected. I
yeah,
think that speaks to it. And
yeah.
so what really matters to me in living now, we didn't say my daughter unexpectedly died at age 39. And even though I was trained in the stages of grief because I was a therapist when Kubler-Ross came up with those stages, and it did mute and trans transport us with a different way of dealing with death and dying and aging, it's now become prescriptive, and she meant it to be descriptive, that these feelings happen. And so what I want to say, because it relates to our book, is that the stages of grief, when you're stuck in them, close us off from living and possibility. When it
Yeah,
becomes prescriptive, we're
yeah,
cut
yeah.
off, we feel different. And then what happens to some people is they join the tribe of grievers, and
Mm,
then they keep each other stuck. What stage are you in? You can go to most any grief group and announce what stage you're in, and everybody sees that as that's great. They don't the last stage of acceptance does not follow the other stages. That's what I
mm,
want to say, that
yeah.
every moment can be a new possibility for living.
Yes, yes, and it absolutely is. I think everybody experienced losing a loved ones, and I definitely had my shares in life, and I dealt with it differently. We all do. I read somewhere in, I don't know, was it a novel? But there was a man who lost his son, and just a couple days later, he went out, experienced life to the fullest, maybe partying or whatever it was. And people came up to him and said, "How can you do that?"
Mhm.
And his answer was, and I paraphrase, and it has been a long time, but it just popped into my head as you sharing that. His answer was, "Well, he is gone. There's nothing I can do about it at this point, unless I just stay stuck in those feelings of sadness, and that would not help me and other people around me. So what is the opposite is just participating in life." And when I read that, I said, wow, that is so powerful. And I totally forgot about it until just now as we talked about it.
Well, the
And it,
reason you remembering it is that is exactly what's deeply motivates me. Deeply, deeply, I cannot tell you how deeply, because I, with consciousness, live every day for my daughter. I live every day inspired by her life, inspired by her heart, and it makes me so satisfied. It is so fulfilling. And I really had to face I might be alone, just like this man was questioned. If I don't suffer, can I admit that to anybody? The reason I'm not suffering is because I'm living for her. I'm living my life in her honor. And
mm,
what's there to suffer about that? Like, what, how does that help her? Like your man said, it doesn't help. And
right,
that's just a crazy thing, a taboo and a culturalization of wrong thinking, of incorrect thinking. And we've
right. And
taught it to each other. But I
yeah.
actually thought, can I admit that to people? And there was a
Mhm.
moment when I considered, well, maybe I'll just pretend. And I was like, no, just to belong, just to belong. I was for a second. And then I thought, well, I won't belong anywhere. I won't even be with the grieving mothers. And it was like, no matter. I have to do this. I have
Yeah,
to. There's no choice. Once you see the truth that suffering is not love, suffering is attachment. Your life is no longer the way you wished it could be, but it does not represent love. You know, they
that
have,
is powerful. That is a very powerful statement. And for everybody who is listening, I think we have almost a feeling of um, what's the word that I was looking for? Guilt. That if I, don't grieve, or if I don't cry now, people see me as that. Again, it goes back to how you think you are perceived by other people.
But people
And
do assume that. They say, "I know what you're going through." No, you actually don't know what I'm going through. And they put that on you. If I shut down, wore black, quit my work, didn't talk to anybody, I would get a lot of support. People would feel like, "Oh, she loved her daughter so much that her life was over when her daughter died." How does that compute? I loved her so much that I shut down my life?
yeah, that's right. So I think it's a great way to just bring this out for other people to hear. Oh, I don't have to do it a certain way, and we all can do it in many different ways.
Every
When
way is okay. Every way
every
is
way is okay. And not to say that you don't cry. This is very natural, very normal. We have to cry. That's for our body to release that sadness and get over it. I remember, again, we go through stages. I remember when my one of my best friends died suddenly, heart attack. She was in her 50s, right? And when I heard that news, I I couldn't believe it. I was in denial. I couldn't just, no, this cannot happen. And then I just cried and cried and cried. And then I was there as a support to her daughters. And then I was at her life celebration, which I like very much. It's celebration of life, right? Rather than funeral.
Mhm.
So I was there, and I was even singing. It was a hard thing to do, but it was hurtful. It was very much so. But we all go through different stages, and nothing to say it's right or wrong. But we cry, it's coming out, and we remember a person, and it feels okay because I know at the end, that is my belief, our souls are, eternal. We still feel, think, or we still think the same way, not maybe the same way, but we feel we're not getting older, even though our physical body ages a little bit. But that's another way to see, our souls are eternal, and eventually we all communicate again on a different level and a different spheres.
And Sabine, can I add one little piece to what you said? Because I love what you said. We have these different feelings. You called them stages. But what if we don't call them stages? Stages has a boundary and a fence around it, and you're stuck in it. Feelings come and go.
I
Feelings
love
come
it.
and go. And so we have the pain. But if we call it a stage, we're stuck there. I think we need to change that wording because of what people have done with it, and just
Mm,
say their feelings and their thoughts. Both feelings and thoughts are not truth, and they're not permanent. They come and they go.
I love
And
it. Yes.
then we're free to a new possibility, which you have embodied with your friend. I have embodied with my daughter. But, we almost couldn't put it into a verb in present tense and say we are embodying and changing and transforming day by day, expanding into possibility.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. And for everybody who's listening now, I definitely invite you to read Rosalind's story, which is so powerful, that she shares in our book, Become Empowered. And our book launch is next week on Wednesday. I can't
Yeah.
wait for it to come out. Yes. And
7
there are
p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the virtual launch party, but the entire day we're going to do something. But if you want to participate, I'm going to put the link to become a VIP guest into the comments so you can be part of it. And I definitely invite you to come because you can meet other authors there. You can ask questions and you can even win prizes. There are the different prizes. And yeah, and we also, all the sales on that day, 50% of the proceeds will go to a nonprofit organization that supports women and bring awareness of human trafficking. Of course, women, young women, and children are mostly affected by that. And so I'm very passionate about helping them. So it's a win-win-win situation. You will get a wonderful book with empowering stories. You will support the authors. You will support the nonprofit. So that's what I always like when sharing something, that it is a win-win-win for everybody.
Yes. And the way it works this year, that if you purchase your book on that particular day, Wednesday, the 24th of April, you will not only help this nonprofit, but you will help us all become best-selling authors. And it's in your hands, and we so appreciate your help,
Yes.
really.
Thank you. Yes, for pointing that out. That's the other win that I was talking about. So I also wanted to add on to it that we had a prior conversation.
Mhm.
Actually, I interviewed you how the whole process was for you as a
Mhm.
co-author, and also you shared when you were the author writing your best-selling book, and you shared all that experience in our podcast.
Mhm.
And the podcast now is live. And I wanted to also invite you to check out our podcast. Just go to, um, let me see if I have that. I'm going to put this in the chat. While I'm doing this, why don't you share something about your book that you
Oh.
wrote?
So I thank you. It's called When Wisdom Arrives: From Imagined Unworthiness to Freedom. And it's a fable, and then it's a short memoir. And the fable is a story about a little girl who imagines she's unworthy because she imagines her mother is judging her tummy. And there have been 3 generations of in the story of mothers judging their daughters, and I had that situation with my daughter, and I was an obese child and had that situation with my mother, and it stopped in our generation. And before Melissa died, we had this gorgeous rapprochement, if you will, this coming together, and it's heart wrenching, but also very motivating that we can get beyond this imagined unworthiness to a freedom of possibility.
Yes, yes. And I cannot stress enough, since we talked about this topic, that oftentimes y- people feel that is their fault, either the parents' fault or their own fault. I cannot help myself, stop eating or whatnot, not understanding really what happened. Number one, in our society, that the food, and I say this in parentheses, right, is poisoned. Of course, not. Um, I have to be very careful with that, right? What I mean by that, all the chemicals that's being used now to preserve the food, because we don't get it out of our gardens any longer, right? And also everything that's being used to make a longer shelf life, to make it fast food, to keep it in boxes. We don't have that fresh and healthy food anymore that we are used to. So that is definitely something that also contributed to the obesity that we see, especially in this country. But then also what food does to our psyche and to our body and our chemicals. We feel good when we eat, right? That's why we have that quote unquote comfort food. But what I experienced in seeing in so many friends and family circle is the fact that um, the kids are being almost groomed to eat the junk food. And I'm not blaming anybody or the parents that they do it on purpose, by all means not. It's just how our society evolved and the busyness that we have. So all of that combined, I think, is part of getting to the stage where we are now. And the question is, how can we um, cut or disrupt this cycle? And I want to ask you, because it seems like you went through that experience. Can you say something about that?
Well, you are approaching it from a wholly different way than I had to in order to actually get to where you want to end up. Where you're pointing to is to feed the body with what the body needs, the body nutrition, and have that connection to our body's intuition. That's what you're pointing to. If we have healthy food, we then desire healthy food. I had to get over the good food, bad food psychological idea first before I
Mm.
could even hear my body's intuition, even for thirst. I didn't even hear that. I only had the cravings because if you tell a little girl in words or by their imprint that they cannot have chocolate, but the father can have chocolate, and the chocolate will be hidden away from the little girl. What's the most important thing is finding that chocolate, getting some, and giving it to yourself. It becomes beyond nutrition, it becomes a dynamic that is so powerful. And that was so imprinted with diets. This you can have, this you can't have. This is off the program, this is on the program. So I had to go the wildest way, bringing in enormous amounts of even junk food, all of it, so that all of the potency of getting those foods was taken away. The binging stopped because I promised when any of it went halfway down, I would replace it because I wanted to be over it so much, especially for my daughter, because she was obese as well. And it worked. It was like it lost because I stopped taking it from the inner child. Once the inner child can have it, you don't want 10 pieces of cake. You just, body doesn't want it, right? So now I can get to where you were pointing, where I can feel the good nutrients when it's from a garden and when it's fresh. But I was so far into the addiction, which is completely psychological as well as physical. And I
Yeah,
had
I think
to get over good food, bad food. Broccoli had to have the same moral value as Twinkies or whatever packaged thing you can think of.
yeah, yeah. I'm so glad that you pointed that out, because yeah, it is I would say what people say, there's this good saying, mind over matter. And I think it's a matter of maybe it's also different for each person, each individual, but you have to come to the understanding for yourself that um, instead of maybe taking stuff away, you are adding stuff,
Mhm, mhm.
right?
You're
So it's like,
exactly right, exactly right, exactly
right.
right. And if I ever get pulled back by an old dynamic, if I remember what you're saying, just add anything, add the healthy things I haven't been eating, add a little more protein, add a little more. It's magic. I snap back, right back to my new place of home being the foods that nourish me. But I also allow any other moment because I trust myself. I'm not afraid I'm going to get lost in chocolate or anything else that I might eat. The
Mhm.
body doesn't want to keep on wanting that. If you have it
Right.
once, you're over it.
Yes. And when you feel good about it, then it makes a big difference, right? Yeah, yeah. And I have, I remember, I guess we all have been there to restrict yourself or wanting to, lose weight or wanting to uh, do better in whatever area. It doesn't have to be only that. Then you sometimes almost get in a trap because
Mhm.
you're always thinking about, oh,
Can't
I
have it,
cannot
can't
have
have
this, I
it, not
cannot.
gonna eat it, not gonna eat it, not gonna eat it.
Right.
How
Right,
long
right.
are you
So
gonna eat it? Right.
yes, yes. So very, very true. Um, yeah, and also again in our book, there are several, all stories of all the ladies that in this book are so different. And
Powerful,
some of
powerful.
that powerful, yes, go about losing a loved ones or making this transition or finding their purpose and everything combined. So all stories are entertaining. That's another thing. What I love, you are sucked into their to the scene in that moment in their lives, and for many of us, we can identify at least part of the story. Oh yeah, and then you read another story and that it's totally different, and then you identify yourself. Oh yeah, yeah, I had to go through that too, or I saw somebody in my family. And when we see that and have that connection of, wow, that person got over it and went through it and transformed, so can I.
Yes,
Right?
very much so, very much
It's
so.
almost like if we can see the mile the what is it? The minute, the 1 minute mile or something like that, right?
Mhm,
Was a new record. I don't know what it was now. It was a new record broken, and now all of a sudden everybody broke that record, was able to do it.
mhm.
And
Yes.
if we can be the if we can be someone who can show a person it's possible, that
Mhm.
is very empowering.
Yes, there's a story in there that all the stories are really well written, and there's a particular story that hit me most powerfully, and that's Anne's story when she loses her sight. And I haven't lost my sight, but the way, the grace and the power and the wisdom, but also the heart with which she has gone through and is still going through that process, even though I haven't had anything like that, I am so motivated to live larger, more heroically because of her story.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because, eh, again, when I read all these stories, I felt honored. I felt touched. And also with what you shared in the podcast with me, it was like a wow moment that because of that idea of this collaboration, the, we set things in motion. And then now, with that done, who knows what this book sets in motion, right? Now we release that, and now it becomes its own thing. And I can't wait, to tell you the truth. I can't wait to see what happens with it.
Yes, me too. It's very, very exciting, and it has a life of its own.
Yes.
You know, I used to do a lot more painting. That there's, you can see a painting there, and at first I wanted to keep them all, and I didn't want to show them. And then I realized, oh, it's like giving birth to a child. You wouldn't say you have to stay in my basement and stay at home. You give birth to have the child have their own life. And
Mm.
that's the way it was with paintings. I had to realize they went where they were supposed to go. And the same with our book. Our book is going to have its own life, and we're birthing it. And then we get to watch what it becomes. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. And I want to finish with that part, what you just said, that you had your paintings, but you didn't want to give it away. And that analysis, that analogy that you did with, it's like a baby, right? Or it's your child. Eventually it will go into places, into this world. And I can compare this to my music. I
Mm.
had the same thing. And actually, this is the story that I share in the book, is about that overcoming the fear of sharing your music. And in my case, because I really felt that I was that vessel that received those messages and the melody and the music from higher power, but I was at the same time afraid of judgment, right?
Mm.
Because they may think, oh my gosh, what was she thinking? Or is it her story? Or whatever it is, all those things that goes through our mind. And I had this very impactful, empowering experience that I share in my book. And I also share two of the songs that made that huge difference in my life in the book. And yeah, I can't wait to share it now. It's out now. It's out, but this is what it is. And we
Mhm.
have so much. And everyone who is listening or watching this recording, you have greatness within you. You have a gift. You have been given that talent, and it speaks to you. You want to do it, and
Mhm.
just act upon it. And
Mhm.
there is a way to unlock your full potential. And
Mhm.
I'm passionate about teaching and helping others to unlock that potential. So if you want to go one step further and want to talk to any one of us, of course, you can talk to the authors at our book launch. But if you want to talk to me about anything, just go to talktosabine.com and schedule a time with me. I'm happy to connect with you and to help you answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, and if imagined unworthiness is what's keeping you from unlocking that potential, Sabine is the person to work with that will help you break down that barrier and go to that action she's speaking of. Do it. If you're feeling it, do it. Yes, please.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Rosalind. As always, it has been a pleasure
Thank
having
you.
this conversation. And when we first started out, well, let's see where it takes us, right?
Yes. Who would have
And it
thought?
always takes us where we need to go. So
Yeah.
thank you for being here.
Thank
And
you
I
for
can't
having
wait to
me.
see you at our book launch party.
Yes, yay. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.